Well, the Liberals now have a majority government to help pass that fiscal update, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre had some harsh words about how we got here.
But before I address that, let me just address that this Prime Minister has manufactured a costly majority that Canadians rejected in the last election. He did it through dirty backroom deals against the interests of the people, with the help of politicians who betrayed their voters and their citizens.
After picking up 5 floor crossers, the Liberals secured their majority after winning 2 Save Toronto seats, as well as a historic Bloc stronghold in Quebec. As for the Conservatives, their results worsened since last year's general election. In all 3 ridings, their vote share was lower compared to 2025. Joining me now to discuss all of this is Adam Chambers, an Ontario Conservative MP and the party's international trade critic. Adam Chambers, always good to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Dave, it's good to see you back.
Thanks, sir. What is the mood inside the Conservative ranks now that Mark Carney has a majority government?
Well, I mean, we have caucus meeting tomorrow. Of course, we'll be discussing all of these things. But importantly, I think Conservatives have a job to do. We were given a job, very important job after the election, which was to hold the government accountable and to provide some ideas for the government with which to strengthen the country. I think the Prime Minister is even borrowing. We've inspired an idea that he announced today about cutting the fuel tax. We've tried to inspire the government in other ways as well. We've been happy to see them borrow some of our ideas, the GST on homes as an example, and of course, cutting the carbon tax. So, you know, I think we have a very important job to do as the official opposition, that is to hold the government accountable in the Parliament, in the House of Commons, and as well as in committees, which is why I'm interested to see how the Prime Minister decides to use his majority, and will he reframe the committees to make them less accountable.
Right. I asked the Finance Minister about the changes to the committees today. He said he'd leave that to the House Minister, and we haven't gotten clarity on that yet. But I suspect with a majority government, the Liberals will want to move on that. But you said you're going to talk about this in caucus tomorrow. I mean, surely you've been talking about it. I know you all have phones and you text and you have group chats. There must be an immediate reaction to the fact that they are at 174 seats when 15 months ago, this was going to be you guys with a majority government.
Well, I think, like, last night, the results of those elections were not surprising, I think, to anybody. So, you know, this discussion about the Prime Minister having a majority government really was cemented by floor crossers, both from the Conservative Party, but including the NDP. Yep. So, like, this discussion about the majority government has been going on for some time. I would say, you know, I'm disappointed in the fact that some individual MPs, 5 MPs, have decided to take it upon themselves to give the Prime Minister a majority. I think they will have to be held accountable and have to face their own electorate, as they have been over the holidays, to justify their own decisions, and or if they run again, they will be held accountable through the ballot box. But I think, you know, that train has already left the station. You know, last night's by-elections were not a surprise by any measure. I think, you know, the Liberals were expected to win for sure 2 and likely 3, which they did. So, you know, I don't think that really changes much in terms of like how things, how people are feeling as Conservatives. I think we have an important job to do, and we're ready to do that and ready to hold the government accountable.
But, you know, it does lock in the reality, right? From the election last year to the defections, which is, I concede your point, that is the deciding factor in them getting over the majority line, and then cemented by the by-elections last night. There's no next chance to win government now if they stick with the majority mandate until October of 2029, after 4 straight election defeats. I mean, what does that reality mean when it sets in with the Conservative caucus?
Well, I think the reality is we can take some time. We can recalibrate. We can discuss how we will continue to press the issues that I think Canadians care about the most. The way to win the hearts and minds of Canadians is to continue to speak about and advocate for those things that we believe are on the tops of minds of all Canadians, including affordability, including crime, including housing, including taxes in general, which is why I think, you know, Conservatives did receive more seats in the last election, why we did grow our total vote number. Of course, you always want to win the election, but I think, you know, we can take some comfort in the fact that Canadians elected a very, very strong Conservative opposition, and we will take that job very seriously.
Okay, you did grow the vote in the last election, and Mr. Poilievre last week, when he was asked about his leadership, pointed to the 8.3 million voters as proof of support for his continued tenure as leader. In these by-elections, your vote dropped by double digits in all of them. You're the official opposition. You got 8.3 million votes, more money than any other political party, and double-digit drops right down to about 3%, I think it was, in Terrebonne. I mean, what do you make of that sort of collapse of Conservative support, particularly in Toronto seats, where you're going to need to win if you're going to form government?
Let's take Terrebonne as an example, because you mentioned it. I think if you look at percentages, it's somewhat misleading. I think if you look at total raw vote totals, Liberals in the Bloc basically got almost the exact same number of votes that they did in the general election. Conservatives who would have run third in the general election just didn't turn up to vote. I think that's what the numbers would lead you to believe. I think the Liberals in the Bloc were about within 1,000 votes.
Right.
And so to me, I think it's more of just a recognition that most of these by-elections tend to result in the voters from the top two parties coming out to vote. I'll contrast that with the by-election in Elmwood-Transcona, which I think would have been the same when the Liberals were running a very, very distant third there. Their voters did not come out. This is before the last election.
Yeah, they got 4.9% in that. It was the lowest,
Correct.
I think, a governing party has gotten in a major urban area seat. And that was one of the death knells of the leadership of Justin Trudeau, though.
No, I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I think I have to go back and look at the timeline of those elections. I mean, Justin Trudeau stayed on after the St. Paul's by-election when they got when we won that by-election. You know, that would have been the time potentially for him to go if that was the measure.
Well, it was, if I remember correctly, it was St. Paul, then it was LaSalle and Langley City, Cloverdale, and Elmwood-Transcona, kind of in that order. And then there was the caucus letter, and then there was a Freeland resignation, and then there was eventually his resignation. But when you're seeing numbers like that, whatever the circumstances, for a government in waiting, as the official opposition is, for a leader who says you got 8.3 million votes, and that is the test, that is his tenure is durable, does it still look durable after Mark Carney securing a majority through various methods and that kind of an outcome, and what you're seeing in the broader public opinion polls that would suggest these aren't necessarily anomalies?
I just don't accept that the by-election results are what is going to be the determining factor or what is reflective of the position that, the Conservative Party is vote has cratered. Usually what happens in by-elections is the parties that have the best chance of winning, the first place and the second place, those voters turn out, and the third place party's voters typically don't turn out in those by-elections. And I think the results in Terrebonne demonstrate that almost perfectly last night, given the Liberals in the Bloc got basically the same votes as they had in the general election just a few months ago. So
given the sequence of events since the beginning of 2025, right, with a big lead evaporating, leading to an election loss, Mr. Poilievre losing his seat, and now the defections. I mean, he won the leadership review, taking nothing away from that. But things do keep moving. And I just wonder if there is a reflection happening. Is there talk of gathering signatures for a Reform Act process inside your caucus? Or are you absolutely confident that Mr. Poilievre will be the leader going into the next election?
Well, I certainly haven't heard of any letters circulating with respect to the Reform Act. I think it's always healthy to have self-reflection at various points throughout a year, regardless of whether you're up, down, or sideways. I think, again, we're a party of members. The members did have a vote in the delegated convention that was in January. So I think it would be a bit premature at this point to suggest that caucus would have the ability in just a couple months, especially when I would say, if you look at Pierre's last 6 weeks on the road, he has gone to the U.S., he's been in Europe, strongly defending trade, strongly defending a continental energy and security and defense arrangements, something that Republicans, just wouldn't do, defending free trade. Right. I actually think I have seen some I would say greater range from Mr. Poilievre in terms of looking more statesmanlike, providing a little bit more of a measured tone, and I think that's been a welcome turn of events to showcase that to Canadians over the last 6 weeks.
As a final point, though, he's been very critical of the way this majority happened because of the floor crossing. And I know you talked about people who defect paying the price at the ballot box and these sorts of things, but it really sort of questioned the legitimacy of it, even though this is legal and constitutional under our system. I get the political arguments against it. But should we interpret from that position that the Conservatives, under Mr. Poilievre's leadership in the term of this Parliament, will never accept the floor crosser under any circumstances? Because there wasn't a lot of outrage when Leona Alice-Lev did her defection and David Emerson showed up in Stephen Harper's cabinet. But is it now the position of the Conservative Party of Canada, floor crossers are not welcome? Because it would suggest to me that that is the position they're taking.
Well, it sounds like a good question for our House Leader, who would be probably very intimately involved in those discussions. But I would say my knowledge of history is I like to say is good, but it's not perfect. I think this is unprecedented, where you've had a minority government turn into a majority government through floor crossing. So I think that is a slight difference than what has happened in the past. And if a government already has a majority and they go from 190 seats to 195 seats, that's not changing the balance of power. But if we look at what may happen at committees or in the House of Commons, with the inability for opposition members from all parties to hold the government accountable, we might see some of these pieces of legislation that have been troubling, that would get passed now, but for having minority government. You look at some of the examples, searching mail without a warrant, what we called powers of King Henry powers to allow ministers to exempt various entities or people from laws in the country, with the exception of the criminal code. Like, those laws would have become the law if the Prime Minister had his majority. So I think those are the kinds of accountability mechanisms that in a minority government I think has worked. We have shown an ability to compromise with the government. The government's shown an ability to compromise with us on a few things, and I think that's been to the benefit of Canadians.
Okay. Adam Chambers, we're out of time. I appreciate you coming. This Ontario Conservative MP, Adam Chambers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, David.